Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to cross the Øresund once again and go back to Copenhagen in Denmark, and we're going to have a look at yet another beer from one of the famous Danish gypsy breweries. For this one then we are going to return to Mikkeller, and we're having a look at the third beer I've had from their Beer Geek series. So this one is the rye whiskey barrel aged version of Beer Geek Fudgsicle. It comes in at 11.9% ABV, and they're describing this one as an imperial oatmeal stout with cocoa and vanilla. So yeah, this one I think should be pretty damn good actually. This is the first barrel aged beer that I've had in the Beer Geek series, and the other two beers that I've had from the Beer Geek one before, I believe the very first one was the Beer Geek Bacon, which was done within the first 50 reviews that I ever did on the channel actually, so you can go back and look at that video and see me being all fresh faced and not really knowing what I'm doing if you want to. But back in maybe 2017 or so I had the Beer Geek Brunch, which was in a little can. I'm sure that one was produced over at Mikkeller San Diego in California actually. That was one of the first cans I ever saw from the Mikkeller San Diego facility actually, so it was quite cool to come across that, because that was a beer that I'd heard a lot about actually, and it was really cool to be able to review that for you. But needless to say, Mikkeller really know what they're doing when it comes to the Imperial Stouts. This one's got a very high rating, 4.1 according to Untappd when I had a little look earlier on. One of my favourite stouts that I ever had from Mikkeller was the Black Hole, and I bought that at the Mikkeller and Friends bottle shop in Copenhagen over in Copenhagen, and it was really very nice, that one. I bought it because of the space theme on it, because I was studying physics at the time. So yeah, I got that one just because they had lots of Imperial Stouts. That one stood out to me because of the artwork, and it was honestly one of my favourite beers that I've had from Mikkeller ever actually. It's one that will always kind of stick with me, I'm sure. So yeah, if you get the chance to try some of the Imperial Stouts from Mikkeller, then you definitely want to. For those of you watching outside of Scandinavia, I really recommend that you try some of the Scandinavian Imperial Stouts. They are very different to the American ones, the Scottish, English, Australian, Japanese ones that I've had. The Scandinavian Imperial Stouts are very unique in my opinion, very thick and oily and just beautiful in terms of their flavour actually. And Mikkeller with beers like that were one of the kind of pioneers of that whole kind of style. So yeah, this one I think should be a really interesting beer. Definitely curious to have my first barrel aged version of one of the Beer Geek beers, and especially a rye whiskey barrel aged version of that. They can give some really interesting undertones to the beer. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Mikkeller before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Danish beers that I've reviewed for you, and that's being added to very regularly because of how close I live to Denmark. I love going over there and picking up a few Danish beers. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Mikkeller. So Mikkeller, as I've told you already, are one of the famous Danish gypsy breweries. The company was founded back in 2006 by Christian Keller and Mikkel Bjergso, whose names it's derived from, although it's now run exclusively by Bjergso after Christian Keller left the company very early on to go and work for Soundhouse magazine. Mikkel Bjergso used to work as a physics and maths teacher. Kind of similar to me, although I did chemistry as well. But again, these guys are very influenced by the American craft beer movement, and they basically started out as Christian and Mikkel's homebrewing experiments and grew from there. So for a long time these guys didn't have their own brewery, but they brewed at a variety of host breweries in America, Norway, Scotland and Belgium. Most of their beer for a long time was brewed at the De Proef Brewery at Locriste Heefte near Ghent in Belgium, and they still brew quite a lot of stuff there from what I understand, and their home base as such was the Mikkeller bar on Victoriagade in Copenhagen. That one is still open and you can go and see that, the original bar that these guys had. But they also soon after that started up a collaboration bar with Toul, whose founders are former students of Mikkel's, Tore Gainter and Tobias Emil Jensen, if I remember their names rightly. and they've got some very, very nice beers over there as well, and that bar is called Mikkeller and Friends. I still need to go and check that one out actually. It'd be cool to go and do a few out and about videos of the Mikkeller and Friends bars and things like that over in Copenhagen. But in April of 2016 they took over AleSmith's former brewery in San Diego after they moved on to a larger space, and then the following year in 2017 they announced that they were going to establish a second brewery at Citi Field, which is home of the New York Mets over on the east coast of the States. But these guys now also have a location in Copenhagen called Baghaven, or Baghaven as you might think. Danish pronunciation, as I've told you before, is a little bit kind of crazy, to be honest with you. It's very difficult to pronounce things properly from Danish if you read them. This is basically their sour beer production facility. There they've got 12 oak fodders ranging from 3,000 to 7,000 litres, and about 50 different 225 litre California Chardonnay barrels in which to age their beers. The beers that they have are brewed at Warpigs and then transported up to Baghaven in a big tank thing basically. Then they're aged and blended together, and they've got a lab there as well where they can isolate new strains to create different yeasts. So they've got a lot of different house yeasts and things that they've made that come from different trees and fruits and things like that they found around Copenhagen. This bar also has its own tap room as well, that have their own sour beers as well as lots of things from other sour beer breweries as well. You can also check out various different locations from Mikkeller in Copenhagen. There's the Warpigs Brew Pub, which is a collaboration with Three Floyds from Munster and Indiana over in America. American barbecue themed thing. You know, honestly, one of my favourite places ever. Warpigs is just, you know, to die for. I absolutely love that place. It's got its own on-site brewery as well, and they've got some very nice beers coming out of there that I highly recommend you check out as well. But they've got various bars around the world these days. There's one in Barcelona, there's Madrid, Warsaw, Bucharest, Stockholm, Tórshavn up in the Faroe Islands, there's Tokyo in Japan, Seoul, Korea, Taipei in Taiwan, Shanghai in China, and they've got various locations, as I say, around Copenhagen. There's a few different places in San Diego, and I believe they've got 2 bars in Bangkok, if I'm remembering rightly. So yeah, definitely one of the Danish breweries that you want to check out. One of the real kind of pioneers, probably the first Danish brewery that I ever heard of actually. I think it was Mikkeller that came, then it was Toll, and when I moved over to Scandinavia it was Amar, or the other big one I discovered. So those are probably the kind of 3 pinnacle, I guess you could say, the 3 kind of pinnacle Danish breweries that I heard of. Hornbeer and Midtveins were also the other ones that I came across very, very early on when I came over here at the start. But yeah, Mikkeller, really, really interesting brewery. These guys always doing some very interesting beers, and as I say, one that I would highly recommend that you check out if you get the chance. I'd love to go and see their place in New York, so I maybe need to see if I can film an out and about video over there when I make it out to the States next year, COVID permitting. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Mikkeller for the moment. A really famous brewery these days, and one that you should definitely check out if you get the chance. If you want to learn more about the company, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this one then and see how we go. So yeah, as you can see, the artwork on this one is pretty typical for Mikkeller. They've got that really distinctive artwork on this one. I can't remember what the name of the label artist is actually, but he's been doing the Mikkeller beer art since the beginning actually, which is pretty cool. But yeah, Mikkeller's art is very, very distinctive and very well known in the beer world these days. So like I said here, this one is called the Beer Geek Fudgsicle. It's an imperial oatmeal stout with cocoa and vanilla added to it, coming in at 11.9% ABV. Now this beer on the back does say a couple of interesting things. So it said it was brewed by Lervig Aktiebryggeri from Stavanger, which is away up in Norway, but it's aged in rye whiskey barrels at Toll City in Svininge, which is right in the middle of Sjælland, the island that Copenhagen is on, in Denmark. So yeah, I'm not sure, how would they have done that? Would they have filled the barrels up at Lervig and then transported them down? I'm not sure exactly how they would have done that, so that's kind of interesting there. But yeah, you can see on the back there is the whole kind of fudgsicle thing there. Issued Mikkeller Copenhagen. But this beer was released, I forgot to say that earlier, this beer was released as part of one of the Tilfærig assortment releases in September of 2020 through Systembolaget here in Sweden, and yeah, they've got another one that they released quite recently called George, so I might have a little look at that as well. You might see that one reviewed at some point soon. But like I say, an 11.9% Imperial Stout with cocoa, vanilla, and it says on the back here it has lactose in it as well. But yeah, plain gold bottle cap on this one, 375ml bottle. This one cost me 129 Swedish kroner, so that is maybe about £11 or something. This was one that I really just got for a treat because I thought, you know, Fudgsicle, I love, like, you know, fudge infused Imperial Stout, so I thought this one should be really interesting. But yeah, without further ado then, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. I'm really curious to see what this one has in store for us. It's been so long since I had one of the Mikkeller Beer Geek series, and I just fancied an Imperial Stout. I've had so much beer sent to me over the last while. A lot of them have been IPAs, and I also brought back quite a few IPAs and lagers and stuff like that from Estonia. Still got some beers left over from Finland and things like that as well. So, you know, I just fancied a good old Imperial Stout. So this one seemed like it would be a very safe bet, let's say. So yeah, let's get that back down. It's in position, and there we go. So yeah, as you can see with this one, and as you would expect from an Imperial Stout, this guy has poured a lovely dark ebony rosewood colour. If we shine the light through this one, it does have a wee touch of a kind of Coca-Cola coloured edge right at the top, but otherwise this beer is pretty much black at night, so it's fair to describe this one as a nice dark ebony rosewood colour. There was about a quarter finger of a frothy, kind of light beigey tan head on this one. It's just faded away to be a very kind of thin, foamy layer on this one. It's almost just like a little bit of a dot in the middle of the in the glass, to be honest. So there's just this little island of bubbles just floating around there. But yeah, it looks pretty nice. One or two bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and you can see one or two tiny little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But overall, the carbonation doesn't look too active in this one, and to be honest, you kind of expect that when it comes to a barrel-aged beer. And I noticed that the whiskey on the back of the bottle there is spelled with a K-E-Y, so it's probably, I reckon it's American rye bourbon, the rye bourbon barrels that they've used for this one. So yeah, should be quite interesting. I've not tried, I think I've said this in a few of the reviews. I've had one or two rye whiskey barrel aged things recently, but I've never actually tried a rye whiskey. I need to get my friend Dave in America to sort me out with that, because he's really into his bourbons. I've not tried too many of them because, you know, just being Scottish, we don't really get much bourbon. We don't have a need to get much bourbon, to be honest. But yeah, lovely looking beer this. Let's have a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on then. Oh, jeez. Yeah, that's pretty special, say straight away. You know, you kind of know when you're going to buy one of these Beer Geek beers, you're going to get a good aroma out of it. But yeah, this one really is pretty damn good actually. The aroma is lovely. It's got this, I think I read that this one has butterscotch extract put in it, and it really smells, you know, it smells a lot like Werther's Originals. That's the first thing that you're going to get out of this one, is that Werther's Original type sweetness there. You can definitely smell underneath it. You can smell a little bit of the roasty toasty black malt in there. You can get a little bit of that, but the lactose that this beer has and the oats really kind of smoothen it out. They really kind of sit on top of that. You can just smell it. You can just smell it kind of barely actually. So yeah, a wee bit of the roasty toasty black malt way in the background, kind of towards the back of the nose there. On top of that though, you get the lovely kind of smooth creamy oats and sort of brown, almost brown bready oatmeal. You get that out of this one. And it's lovely how that goes together. So this is just a beautiful smelling beer. I just have to be straight up with that and just say this is awesome. I mean, when they say Fudgsicle, it just smells straight up like fudge. Yeah, it's lovely. But yeah, that lovely kind of almost brown bready quality sits on top of the black malts to get the oats and the lactose just kind of smoothing it out. And then on top of that, you get the chocolate that comes out of this one is quite interesting. But this beer, it comes across as very sweet and Werther's originally. You've got some really kind of, you do get a wee bit of a treacly molasses kind of note out of this one as well, a bit of those kind of darker, more caramelised brown sugars, but kind of beyond that, It almost feels like it's on the kind of edges of the nose. That's when you get the really sweet Werther's Original type qualities out of that brighter butterscotchy, brighter kind of sweet caramel kind of notes in there. You've got a lovely bit of chocolate to this one. I would say quite a milky chocolate, to be honest. You know, a sort of, well, what would we say, about a 40% cocoa chocolate in there. And again, it comes across as really milky, probably because, you know, there's lactose and oats and things in this beer. So yeah, I mean, it's got a really it really has a very well layered aroma, this one, and we've not even talked about the barrel aging yet, because you get that really infused woody kind of quality. It takes, for me, the first things I noticed about this, with the sweetness of course, it actually takes a few sniffs for you to kind of pick up on the barrel aging side of it. And I've said in previous reviews as well, I've always been kind of curious about barrel aging, because I do feel that in barrel aging it takes the mouthfeel down a little bit. I need to do a few comparison videos, you know, like barrel aged versus the normal, you know, barrel aged versus the regular beer. I need to have a go doing some videos like that, because I'm still unsure. In some cases barrel aging can work very well, but in some cases I might argue it's not necessary. But I think it's going to be quite interesting for this one for sure. But I mean, underneath all of those things I've just described, you can smell that nice kind of smooth, woody, oaky undertone to the beer. Now, when it comes to the rye whiskey barrels, I've always found that the wood smells almost just a little bit kind of more musky and almost slightly leathery compared to some of the other things like bourbon barrels. They always smell a little bit kind of sweeter. American bourbon for me is always, you know, considerably more kind of brown sugary, almost like sugar caney compared to the Scotch whiskies, where it's a bit more toasty almost. But yeah, you can smell that the wood in this one, kind of towards the back of the nose, it's got a kind of musky type quality to it from the rye whiskey, but you do get a bit of that kind of brown sugary element to it as well, kind of further forward on the nose, but you get that lovely oaky woody note. There's almost a bit of vanilla. There's definitely a wee bit of vanilla coming out of this one as well. So yeah, this one, the aroma of this, it takes a little while for the kind of barrel aged elements to come out of it, I think, but when you get them you can really smell that kind of muskiness that you'd expect from the rye whiskey. I really like how that goes together, to be honest with you. So yeah, the aroma of this one is lovely. On the hoppy side of things, you do get a wee touch of earthiness out of this one, a little bit of grassiness there, but when it's barrel aged, it's a big barrel aged imperial stout, you're not going to get too much in the way on the green side of the hops. As I say, a little bit of earthiness, a little bit of grassiness in there, but on the fruity side there is a wee bit to talk about. For me, when you take this one in, it's got a good bit of a blackcurranty, blackberry-ish type note to it. Yeah, it's really the fruits that you get with this one. I don't get the kind of softer figgy notes that you sometimes get. I don't get the kind of juicier plums. It's really the blackcurrants and the blackberries that come out of this one. It's got a wee bit of almost sharpness to it, in fairness. So yeah, I would stick with that, the sharper blackberries and blackcurrants. That's what really jumps out of this one. I don't get the kind of, as I say, I don't get the juicy, the kind of more, the lighter kind of juicier notes. It's actually quite a wet fruitiness that comes out of this beer, to be honest with you. So yeah, I like how that, I do like how that goes together. But yeah, take a little bit of time. Take a little bit of time and just enjoy that aroma before you get stuck into it. I think this beer is going to be pretty special. So yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see how you get on. So this one is the rye whiskey barrel aged version of the Beer Geek Fudgsicle, coming in at 11.9% ABV, an imperial stout with, how are they describing this, an imperial oatmeal stout with cocoa and vanilla, and I've heard a bit of butterscotch extract in it as well. Along with, well, this one was brewed at Lervig Brewery in Stavanger in Norway, and then it was aged in the rye whiskey barrels at Toll City in Svininga, right in the middle of Skjelland in Denmark. So yeah, a little bit of Norway, good bit of Denmark in this one. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål. Oh yeah, that's pretty damn nice actually. I'll say something straight away about this. The barrel aging comes in right away with this one. It comes in on the front of the palate, then you can just feel it kind of creeping back actually But I'm just going to say, this is an awesome beer. So thumbs up to Mikkeller for this one. They've done a damn nice job of this. Yeah, I really like how this one pieces together. I mean, this is just a beautiful beer. I mean, it's no surprise these guys know what they're doing when it comes to imperial stouts. I've said that quite a few times, but this one really is. This is pretty special actually. It's a lot more roasty and toasty than I was thinking it would be. From the aroma, you can get a good bit of that black malt there, but it's kind of smoothed out by other elements. This is one of these ones where I'm sitting here thinking, right, where to start when it comes to describing the flavour. This one is stupidly complex, to be honest, but it works really well. So yeah, straight away with this beer then, you can feel on the middle of your palate, you can feel a bit of that roasty, toasty black malt, but then that almost feels as if it's infused into that very slick, kind of woody quality that just blankets the middle of the palate. You get that lovely kind of oaky smoothness just forming the very backbone of the beer. If you go into the kind of centre of your palate, and we're only talking about one layer of this beer, by the way, there's other stuff going to come on top of that, but on the very kind of base layer of the beer on your tongue, that lovely woody smoothness. But if you go into the kind of centre of your palate, almost on the border between the kind of middle third of your tongue and the back third of your tongue, you can really feel a bit of that muskiness and graininess from the rye whiskey in there. And I guess that's probably some interaction between the kind of really the roasty toasty black malts that this beer will have, and a bit of the kind of graininess that you would expect of the kind of rye whiskey barrels. Actually, I've always found that they're a little bit more kind of almost musky and grainy in terms of the way that they give you the infused flavours from the beer. But yeah, as you move further forward within that woody kind of area, that's when you start to get the vanilla out of this one. You can really feel the kind of oaky vanilla-y notes on the, if you go to the front corners of your palate and diagonally backwards, that's when you start to get the kind of vanilla elements out of it. So yeah, that's only the woody layer we're talking about. That's just the base layer, the backbone of this beer. So yeah, this one is actually lovely. I really like how this goes together. The woody, the kind of barrel aged notes in this one, I think work very, very well. I'd just be curious, because as I say, I've always, when it comes to mouthfeel, I've always felt that the barrel aged beers are not quite as thick in the mouthfeel as the originals are. So I mean, when this beer is, you know, really, really damn thick, and I'd be very curious to see what the original was like, because I would hazard a guess that it's even thicker actually. But yeah, the woody base that this beer has is really very, very nice actually. But yeah, let's talk about the rest of the flavour on this one then. So you can feel just on top of that woodiness, the lactosey quality I think is kind of adding to the sort of slickness that the woody side of the beer has. But yeah, like I say, a little bit of a kind of roasty, toasty black malt sort of lies underneath there. If you go towards the back of the kind of back third of your palate, you do get some nice kind of roasty, toasty, grainy notes out of the beer. But you know, to be honest with you, this beer really leans towards the sweet end of the spectrum when it comes to the imperial stouts. And when it's called Fudgsicle, you would kind of expect that. But yeah, back third of your palate, I think it's got a lovely kind of smooth. It's really that kind of very smooth, oatmeal-y, bready sort of thing. You do get a lovely kind of smooth bready layer just sitting on top of the kind of woody character. It's almost like a slightly kind of brown bread, to be honest with you. And in the back third of the palate, that's just a little bit more grainy. But as you move into the middle third of your palate, you can feel the thickness just dies down a wee bit. And then on top of that, you get a nice layer of a kind of sweet chocolate, to be honest with you. It's quite a milky chocolate, and again, probably that's due to the fact that there's lactose, oats and vanilla in this beer, so you get a nice kind of 40% cocoa milky chocolate just sitting underneath that. And that's sitting on top of the you've got the woodiness underneath, like I was saying, then you've got a bit of that kind of oatmeal-y breadiness, then you've got the chocolate, but on top of that chocolatey layer, that's when you get all the brown sugars out of this one. So in the very, very centre of your palate, I think there's a bit of a kind of darker, treacly molasses sort of thing, but as you move further out from that, it definitely becomes a little bit more like that kind of Werther's Original type flavour actually, and that's, as I say, I've heard that they've put butterscotch extract into this beer. So yeah, this one you really get that big Werther's Originally type flavour, and then a lovely milky chocolate kind of sitting underneath it. Then the oatmeal layer, then the wood. It's a very layered beer, this one, in my opinion, and I really like how all of that kind of pieces together. It's really nicely done. Yeah, it's a lovely beer, this one. I really like how all the layers and stuff go together in this one. It really leans towards that big, oily, brown, sugary end of the spectrum, and then you get all these woody undertones and stuff like that coming out underneath. It really feels that in the middle of your palate it's like the top of the mountain, and then everything else, it just kind of sort of gets. It sort of just goes down in the layers there until the edge of the tongue, and that's really nice. It's a lovely beer, this one. If you do come across this, yeah, 129 Swedish kroners is a wee bit... It's a bit of a pricey beer, in fairness, but, you know, for a treat. I hadn't had one of these in a very long time. I thought, you know, why not? Let's do it. It was one that was there. It was, you don't see too many of these coming through the Tillfällig assortment, so I thought, you know, why not actually? I need to try a few more of the Beer Geek beers. I need to try some of the coffee ones actually. I don't know if I've ever had a coffee stout from Mikkeller, come to think of it. That's something that I really need to fix, considering how good these guys are at coffee stout, or at imperial stouts generally. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, then the back corners of the palate, you've got a lovely little bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward along the sides of the tongue, you can just feel that that smoothens out. You get a wee tiny touch of a floral quality on the front corners of your palate. Then round the very front curve of the tongue, it's just a little bit lighter and grassy, which is really interesting. So yeah. But yeah, as I say, when it's a barrel-aged beer, most of the hoppy characters have kind of dropped out of this one. But on the front third of the palate, as I always say, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. This one has a good bit more complexity to the fruitiness than the aroma would have you believe. So if you go towards the back of that front third of your palate, you've got a lovely kind of dark, toasty, well-fired, almost cake edge to it. But then as you move further forward from that, you've got a little bit of a kind of juicy, plummy kind of note to this one. It's maybe even got a wee touch of a raisiny sharpness to it. And as you move further forward along the on that front third of the palate, you get a lovely you do get a lovely you know, you get a lovely kind of you get a lovely sweetness to it actually. You get a lovely kind of juicier, kind of figgy quality to this one. I love the way that it's a kind of mix of plums and figs actually that kind of move further forward on the palate. And as you reach the very kind of front edge of the tongue, that's when you get those slightly sharper blackcurranty, blackberry flavours out of this one on the fruity side of things. Yeah, see, juicy, yeah, definitely juicy plums, little bit of raisiny note, then a kind of figgy quality, but also a kind of, it's also kind of layered with a kind of plummy note at the same time, maybe a little bit pruny almost as well actually as you come further forward. And then on the front tip of the tongue, it's just a little touch more oily on the fruitiness, and then you get those sweeter, slightly sharper blackcurranty and blackberry kind of notes out of this one. I'd be curious to know the hop of this. Could it be like Eureka or a little bit of Williamette? Don't know what hop they would use in this, but yeah, the fruitiness that you get out of this beer, I think, is very, very nice as well. Quite an oily fruitiness there, and that complements the big brown sugary elements, that big treacly molasses thing, and the Werther's Original type qualities that you have in this beer. Yeah, I just have to say, flavour wise, this beer is awesome actually. I love beers like this that you know, that really, I don't even know how to say this one. I can't think of anything really to compare this to. All I can say is that it's a lovely beer, this, and I'm glad that I kind of forked out for this one. This was intended as a bit of a treat because I wanted a nice imperial stout, and it's worked out really nicely. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed my take on this beer. No idea how easy this one is to get for outside of Sweden these days, but yeah, definitely one that I just wanted to try for fun. But on the mouthfeel side of things, then, most definitely a full-bodied beer. Carbonation's very smooth. The mouthfeel overall is quite big and oily. As I said earlier, when it comes to barrel aging, that usually thins the mouthfeel a little bit in my mind. You get more infused flavours, but that comes at the expense of how thick the mouthfeel is. I'd be very curious to see what the original beer is like from the mouthfeel perspective. But yeah, in terms of the hoppy of the IBU count on this beer, I'd say this one's probably sitting about the kind of 50 mark. You do get a bit of graininess and toastiness, like I say, from both the rye whiskey barrel aging and the black malt that's obviously been used in the base of this beer. Yeah, nice little bit of earthiness from the hops, that definitely lingers there too. I think, yeah, about 50 IBUs. This one maybe 40 at minimum. 50 I think is probably a more real estimate, to be honest with you, a more accurate estimate, I should say. So yeah, maybe about 50 IBUs. The malt base in this one and the woody quality is very slick on the woody and barrel aged side of things. Little touch grainy and musky, like I said, but yeah, generally speaking, very slick, and a very big oily sweetness to the beer, and some lovely oily fruity characters with just a little touch of sharpness to them as well. But I mean, overall, beautiful beer, this one, and I would highly recommend that you fork out for this one if you get the chance. I mean, there's a huge selection of different beers from the Beer Geek series that Mikkeller do these days. I really need to review some from the Spontan series as well. I don't think I've covered any of those on the channel so far, but yeah, you've got a huge selection of different things from Mikkeller these days, but you can't really go wrong with the Beer Geek Imperial Stouts. So yeah, if you come across this one, I would recommend it, but you're always going to be, if you get one of the Beer Geek beers, pardon me, you are in for a treat with it, and this one certainly has been very nice to review. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the Rye Whiskey Barrel Aged version of Beer Geek Fudgsicle, an 11.9% Rye Whiskey Barrel Aged Imperial Stout from Mikkeller, brewed at their Vigakta brewery in Stavanger in Norway, and then aged in the whiskey barrels at the Toll City in Svinninge on Sealand in Denmark. So yeah, a little bit of Norwegian in this one, but mainly a big Danish Imperial Stout. Check out the Scandinavian Imperial Stouts, as I said earlier, you know, you're in for a real treat with those if you do. But yeah, awesome to return to Mikkeller and the Beer Geek series, and especially nice to have a go at my first barrel aged version of the Beer Geek series. So you will hopefully see another one of these in the not too distant future, let's say that. But yeah, thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Mikkeller. Let me know what your favourite Beer Geek beers are actually from them as well. That would be interesting to know. But thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out Mikkeller, and have a go at these Beer Geek beers. Like I said, the Danish beer scene is incredible these days. If you get the chance to try some Danish craft beers, jump at it. Slange, skull, catch you guys very soon. Cheers.